Welcome. Today we're doing a deep dive into something pretty foundational and definitely debated in American religious history. We're looking at the origin story of the golden plates, the text behind the Book of Mormon.
Right. And the sources here, they really set up a kind of crossroads, don't they? You've got Joseph Smith's own account, divine encounters, secrecy, this miraculous translation. But then there's this alternative view from scholarship trying to place it all firmly in, well, early 19th century New York.
Yeah, exactly. And our goal here isn't to, pick a side or convince anyone. It's really about unpacking both views. So you, listening, can really get a handle on the tension that exists around this whole story. The big question is pretty stark, isn't it? Was this an actual translation of an ancient record? Or was it something created then, drawing on the ideas and maybe the anxieties of the 1820s?
And to get that tension, you really have to start with the person and the place. We're talking 1823, upstate New York, the burned-over district, famous for all that religious energy. And at the center of it, a young man named Joseph Smith.
Okay, let's dig into Smith's side first. His narrative. He was only 17 in 1823, right? When he says these, well, incredible things started happening.
Yeah, 17. And his account mentions an angel identified as Moroni appearing to him.
And it wasn't vague, was it? He gave a specific date.
Extremely specific. The evening of September 21st, 1823. And Moroni apparently didn't just bring a message, he gave practical info. Like the exact spot where ancient writings were buried. On golden plates hidden in a hill nearby. Wayne County, New York today.
Okay, so not just plates, but what were they about? What did Moroni tell him was on them?
The description was pretty epic, a history of a whole civilization. Moroni apparently explained these people were led by God from Jerusalem over to the Americas, about 600 years before Jesus' time. So essentially, America's ancient history.
Wow. And it wasn't just one group of people, right? The plates talked about conflicts.
That's central to it. It focuses on this long interaction, often violent, between two main groups, the Nephites and the Lamanites.
Oh.
In the story, the Nephites are generally presented as the sort of righteous ones who kept the faith, civilized. And the Lamanites, well, often depicted as fallen, maybe cursed, sometimes barbaric. Their whole history, the ups and downs, the righteousness, the wickedness, that forms the core of the record. It apparently ends with this massive final battle.
So Smith gets this incredible news, an angel, ancient American scriptures buried nearby.
Yeah.
How did his family react? I mean, you'd think they'd be skeptical, maybe?
It's interesting. The sources we have suggest they accepted it pretty much immediately, right from the start. He told his family the next night, apparently, and his brother, William, he later wrote that the family believed all he said.
Really?
And like that. Well, people often point to the culture at the time. They were living in this environment, especially during the Second Great Awakening, where visions, direct spiritual experiences, they weren't seen as totally out there, maybe even expected by some.
Okay, that makes sense in context. Now, here's something that really gets to the heart of the debate, the whole translation versus authorship thing. Smith said that Moroni gave him a brief sketch of what was on the plates before he even got them.
Yes. And that detail is, well, it's huge analytically, a real pivot point. Smith reported that Moroni laid out the whole story arc, the origin, progress, civilization, laws, governments, even the righteousness and iniquity of these Nephites and Lamanites.
Wow. So the whole framework, the main players, the conflicts, the moral lessons, he got that through instruction before he actually, translated anything.
Precisely. Think about what that implies.
It does raise a big question, doesn't it? If the structure and the core story were given up front, what exactly was the role of the physical plates? Was the translation process more like filling in the details of a divinely revealed outline?
Exactly. It shifts the conversation, doesn't it? It's not just translate this artifact. It becomes more like divine instruction, then translation, and maybe expansion. It suggests Smith wasn't exactly starting with a blank page when he eventually began dictating the Book of Mormon years later.
Okay, so back to the timeline. Vision on September 21st, 1823. He goes to the hill the next day, the 22nd, finds the plates, but he can't take them. He's told to wait for 4 years.
Yeah, 4 years. That's a really significant part of the story. It emphasizes patience, preparation. He was told to come back to that same hill, same date, September 22nd, every year. And he did that until 1827.
Why wait, though? Was it framed as a test? Or maybe needing time to learn something?
The sources suggest, maybe both. From Smith's viewpoint, it was about spiritual readiness. He needed to mature, to understand the importance of what he was being entrusted with. He was still very young, remember?
17 at the start, yeah.
But the let's say, alternative scholarly perspective looks at those 4 years differently. It sees that time as crucial for Smith himself. Time to think about that brief sketch Moroni gave him. Time to absorb the ideas, the stories, the theories floating around in his own 19th century world. Basically, time to get ready intellectually to produce a really complex, long book.
That's a key contrast. Spiritual purification versus intellectual preparation using the same time frame.
Exactly. It makes that waiting period not just a detail, but a really core element in figuring out how the book came to be, whichever origin story you lean towards.
Okay, let's jump to 1827, September 22nd again. The 4 years are up. Smith finally gets permission to take the plates, and his wife Emma goes with him.
That's the account, yes. She accompanied him. And Moroni apparently gave him this very strict condition. Nobody else could see the plates at all. Unless God gave specific permission. Secrecy wasn't just advised, it was like a commandment tied to having the plates.
And that secrecy immediately creates conflict, right? Because word gets out somehow that Smith has found something valuable, something maybe made of gold.
And suddenly he's in danger. He and his family, they had to physically guard these plates. People tried to steal them multiple times, according to the accounts. Neighbors, mainly.
Neighbors trying to steal sacred records.
Yeah.
Or gold.
Well, and this is where the context gets really fascinating, especially for the scholarly view. Some of the very neighbors trying to get the plates, they had apparently been involved with Smith before in treasure hunting.
Okay, so not his first time looking for buried things.
Right. That whole region, rural New York in the 1820s, was buzzing with folk magic, searching for lost Spanish treasure, Captain Kidd's loot, you name it. It was common. Smith himself had been involved in that sort of thing. So these neighbors, they likely weren't skeptical about finding buried treasure.
They just wanted it for themselves.
Plausibly, yes. It creates this scenario where the same kind of beliefs that might make some people accept Smith's story, buried artifacts, ancient secrets, also made him a target. The attempts to get the plates might have been driven as much by that treasure-seeking culture as by anything else. Less about scripture, more about potential wealth.
Okay, so we've got the initial vision, the detailed instructions, the 4-year wait, the retrieval, the secrecy, the theft attempts. Let's try and tie these threads back to those 2 big explanations we started with.
Right, because all these details, the Nephites, Lamanites, the secrecy, the treasure hunting context, they get used as evidence by both sides of the argument.
Okay, let's look at the scholarly alternative first. Smith as the author, drawing on his environment. What specific things from the 1820s, besides just general religious excitement, does that view point to?
Well, scholars looking at it this way often highlight, say, 3 big cultural currents. First, you've got the Second Great Awakening, we mentioned that. It created an atmosphere where new revelations restoring original Christianity felt possible, even necessary. Second, there's the treasure digging culture we just talked about. It meant people were already thinking about finding valuable hidden things underground, sometimes ancient things.
Right, the context for the plates themselves. And the third one relates more to the content of the Book of Mormon.
Exactly. That brings in the mound builder myth. This was huge in the 19th century. People were finding these incredible earthworks, mounds, ancient ruins all over North America. And many white Americans at the time, well, they couldn't or wouldn't believe that the Native Americans they knew could have built them.
So they came up with another explanation.
Yeah, they speculated about some lost race, maybe Europeans, maybe Israelites, some vanished civilization, the mound builders who built everything and then were wiped out, maybe by the ancestors of modern Native Americans.
And that story sounds remarkably similar to the Nephites being destroyed by the Lamanites in the Book of Mormon.
It aligns incredibly well.
Right.
So the scholarly argument is often that Smith, who was clearly bright and aware of the ideas around him, he sympathized these things. The religious need for restoration, the treasure hunting framework for discovery, and these popular mound builder theories about American origins. He put them together into this compelling narrative that answered big questions for people at the time. So not translation, but a really skillful, culturally relevant creation.
Okay, that's one framework. Now contrast that with how the internal narrative, Smith's own account and his followers' views, sees those same details.
For believers, those details are evidence for the story's truth, not against it. The very specific date of the vision, September 21st, 1823, the angel's command for that 4-year preparation period, the immediate danger from neighbors, These are seen as markers of a genuine supernatural event unfolding.
So the 4-year wait isn't time for Smith to cook up ideas.
No, in that view, it's a divinely mandated test of faith, a necessary period of spiritual growth before he could handle such a sacred responsibility.
And the theft attempts.
Not evidence of treasure hunting, but proof that, evil forces were immediately trying to stop God's work from happening.
It really is about how you frame the exact same facts, isn't it?
Absolutely. Both interpretations rely heavily on the specific cultural setting of 1820s New York. But they use that context to reach completely opposite conclusions about where the Book of Mormon came from. And that's the central puzzle we wanted to explore in this deep dive.
So for you listening, getting a grasp on this fundamental tension divine translation on one hand, 19th century authorship on the other, it's really key. It underpins pretty much every discussion about the Book of Mormon, its history, its impact.
We've walked through Smith's account pretty carefully. That 1823 vision date, Moroni's role, the 4-year wait that demanded so much patience, and then the immediate challenges, the secrecy, the theft attempts, right when he got the plates in 1827.
It is definitely a dramatic origin story packed with detail, no matter which interpretation feels more persuasive to you.
No question. And just as a final thought, something to maybe chew on after this, let's go back to that brief sketch detail. The idea that Moroni gave Smith this detailed outline, laws, governments, history, morality before he had the plates. If you accept that part of Smith's account, what does it suggest about how the Book of Mormon actually came into being? Does getting the whole narrative structure up front through instruction change what translation might have meant in this context? Was it less about figuring out an unknown language from scratch, and maybe more about, say, elaborating on a history and framework that had already been revealed? It certainly raises fascinating questions about revelation and scripture.
A really interesting point to consider. We'll leave it there for this deep dive. Thanks for joining us.